Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. The final episode from Soul for Happy. I hope you've been enjoying it. I hope you've been finding some useful tips in there that you've been able to implement into our lives. Today's session is the final session. We are talking about, let me remind myself, the ultimate truths, okay? Ultimate truths. Okay, so ultimate truth. All right. So we are at our happiest in our lives. Let me go there. We are. I'll just pause for a moment as people are joining. Thanks for joining. Cool. I don't know if you've noticed this, but yeah, we are at our happiest in life when we are fully immersed in the thing that we are doing right now. Okay, because we're not thinking about basically other things cannot enter our thoughts. So that could be reading a book, could be listening to somebody as you're having a conversation. It could be staying focused on your specific work tasks and kind of just doing one thing at a time. So the multitasking is a myth. Multitasking just doesn't happen. What I've talked about this a few times is our brain just switches between tasks, and there's a bit of a lag time between those switches, which makes us less efficient. And as a consequence, it can make us less happy because we're trying to do 2, 3, 4, 5 things kind of concurrently with each other, and we just don't like doing it. It becomes a bit overwhelming. It becomes very stressful. So, okay, I suppose a big tip coming in early is when you're doing a job or when you're with someone or when you're performing a task. It could be exercise, it could be football, it could be sport, it could be work, it could be in a relationship with talking to someone. Try and do your very, very, very best to remain focused purely on that one thing, and that will help you to increase happiness or decrease stress. Okay, let's say decrease stress. Okay, no, not necessarily increase happiness. So there's a little exercise. Okay, so it's look around you, and this is maybe when you feel a bit stressed, a little bit overwhelmed. Is look around you for just a few seconds, 5 or 10 seconds. Okay, so look around the room you're in, depending on where you are, you're outside, just for 5 seconds. And then close your eyes and then describe everything you saw in that 5, 10 seconds. Okay, and what you'll find is that it takes a hell of a lot longer to describe what you saw in just that 5 seconds. It'll take you a lot longer to describe it than to actually see it. So it'll take you a minute, 2 minutes to describe all of the things that you saw in just that 5-second snapshot. So it's an exercise to show us that even with all this stuff around us, we're not really observing the vast majority of it. So that's kind of okay. Our brain filters all that out. So when you remain focused on one thing and keep all of our attention on one thing, none of the rest of the world matters. Right? So all the stuff that's going on in politics, in the environment, in other areas of our life, right? If we remain focused on one thing, we can kind of push that all to one side and remain happy in that moment, right? Or de-stressed, I suppose, in that moment. So there are 4 things that we can place our awareness on. Okay, the outside world, okay, that could be literally nature, it could be other people, could be all sorts of things. Your inner world, okay, your body, okay, so you could focus on your heartbeat or your lungs, or it's a lot of what I do. In terms of treatment, I'm focusing on the inner world quite a lot. I'm also focusing on the next one, okay, is your thoughts and emotions and just letting them flow. Okay, so if you're sat in meditation and with your eyes closed, you can just let the thoughts come. Okay, and there will be negative stuff in there, and there will be all sorts of negative stuff in there. Probably most of it. Okay, you should be doing something else. Blah 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 blah. Okay? I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling, and your brain will just chit chat away to you, and you could just sit and be aware of it. The technique I kind of teach on that, like a written technique, is the devil writing or unconscious writing, where you write down just everything that comes into your brain, and you just write it down. And you can just sit there and think, I have a preference really to writing things down. Okay? And more of an esoteric one is your connection to the rest of everything. Okay, your connection to the universe, to the trees, to the plants, to the other humans, to the planets, and to the stars. Okay, that wouldn't be my preference. Okay, but it might be one of yours. Okay, so they are four major areas that we could focus on to increase our focus and awareness on a kind of on a thing to keep us in a less stressed state. And if we practice that maybe a couple of times a day on any of those things, right? So imagine if you went into every conversation and your phone was on silent and there weren't really any other distractions. Maybe you're in a coffee shop or whatever, there's noise going on, but you've become so focused on the person or people you're talking to, none of that actually distracts you because you've zoned in on that person. And how much less, so I guess most of us have done that in the past. I hope so anyway. And the rest of nothing else in the world matters in that moment except for when you're talking to that person. So it's about being present. It's about being here in this moment. So I've obviously got a couple of people in live, but if you're watching on a recording, I would encourage you to not watch anything else while you're watching this, or not be try and remain focused purely on this recording or this live video now, rather than on office work or emails if you can, okay, because that will increase your level of happiness, it will increase the rate of learning, right? And it will decrease levels of stress. If you are doing other things while you're doing this, okay, that's fine. Just be aware that that can happen, okay, and take it away into other areas of your life. So if you're writing an email, don't flick between windows, write the email, get it done, move on to the next task, which you might have been kind of flitting in between. Okay, so try and do things in order. Okay, just do one thing at a time and then move on to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. You'll find things much easier. Okay, cool. Yes, and whatever you do it to the best of your ability. Okay, probably there's going to be probably some time restraints in there, but do it to the best of your ability. If there are no time restraints, just get it done. Okay, in chunks if you have to. Okay, so number one, ultimate truths is essentially be here now. Okay, focus on the present moment. Okay, the next one is change. Okay, and we could talk about kind of like the butterfly effect here. So, or if you've seen the film Sliding Doors, where Gwyneth Paltrow, one version of events, she gets on a train, she catches the slightly earlier train home. She gets home, she catches her husband cheating with whoever it is cheating with, and then in the other version of events, she misses the train, the door closes, and she doesn't catch her husband cheating. I don't remember the rest of the story, but that's a bit. So that's the bit I do remember. So one decision you make could lead to one version of events, and another decision we make leads to a different version of events. And we have no way of knowing which one is the right decision. So the key here really is on make a decision. We have no idea either way which decision is right or wrong. We can just do what we can in that moment and try not to fret about what the outcome is, and just we have to make a decision. Do you go or do you not go? Do you take the thing or do you not take the thing? It's, obviously things aren't always black and white. There might be 5 or 6 kind of options, but making a decision is vital, because sitting in limbo it is just going to create stress. Yeah. I like this one. Okay, so we're looking for an almost effortless middle path. Okay, so if we find ourselves pushing too hard or things are kind of too easy and we're drifting, we know we're not on the right path in life. Okay? The right path should feel relatively easy. Um, it shouldn't be a push, and it shouldn't be you shouldn't just be sitting back and doing nothing. But you'll still be doing stuff, but it will flow. Okay? Whereas anything else will feel hard or it just won't happen at all. Okay? Okay. The next section, I think this one will be short today. Okay, is love. Okay, and love is it's not in terms of like romantic love. Okay, it's more in terms of just loving things just because you want to. Okay, so for me, it might be I saw a heron on the school run this morning, and I love watching big birds flying. Okay, so we see red kites all the time. I don't know where, obviously, I know where everyone is in here. So you might see red kites flying around frequently because of where we live in the Chilterns or just off the edge of the Chilterns. We'll see them quite frequently. I love seeing those flying around. The heron, it was just magical seeing this big bird flying around. And that's kind of a thing I love. So it might be the sea, it might be sunrises and sunsets. And just every time you see these things, these events, these possibly animals or whatever it is, you experience a sense of just happiness. Um, and there's no real reason behind it. I mean, I can't think of any real reason why I have like a kind of an overwhelming sense of happiness whenever I see big birds flying around. Okay? It just does. Okay, and in the book he talks about his passion is kind of butterflies. Um, he loves seeing butterflies, and that's what he likes. So it could be walking in nature, trees, different varieties of flower. You might have different interests and different things. Like every time I see roses or whatever. Okay? So everyone will have at least one thing. Okay? So yeah, for me it's sea, it's big birds, and just being. It's having a sense of freedom. It's the sense of freedom for me. But yeah, so have a little think about that. Okay, and he talks about like because he's got this love of butterflies, he sees them more frequently. It might be because he's paid attention to it and he's seeing them. So other people might have a love of frogs and they'll see frogs everywhere. I have a love of birds, so I look up quite frequently and I see birds. It's be because I'm unconsciously looking for them. And just read that bit. The killer of love is wanting something in return. Okay, so when I look at birds, I'm not looking at anything, looking for anything in return. Uh, I'm not looking for them to come down and swoop down and say, "Hey, Pete, how you doing?" I don't want them to land on my arm or anything like that. I just love experiencing them, seeing them out there. So wanting something in return of my examples are, so if I give my time, love, money, or attention or effort, um, I shouldn't necessarily expect something in return. So I kind of related this when I was writing this down to my kids. So I'm giving them a lot of time. I'm giving them a lot of money, so paying for the house, the food, and all this kind of stuff. And my expectation, and probably unwarranted expectation, is that they will listen to me, they will follow my instructions, they will do the things, and that causes friction in my life. Okay? It causes frustration, it causes maybe a bit of anger here and there, because I'm expecting something in return, and it's not realistic. It's not realistic. So I need to try and remember that I need to give those things without expecting them to behave in the way that I would like them to behave, because they've got their own things that they love and they've got their own things that they want to do, which are not the same as mine, as much as I would like them to be. So I'm expecting them to be someone who they're not. Uh, yeah, and that causes friction, mostly in the morning, and then a little bit in the evening, and then at the weekends. So it's something we need to work on. I need to work on myself, and we probably need to work on as a family. Um, but there might be, as just an example for you to maybe look at your life and maybe relationships or whatever, where you feel like you're giving um, some aspect of yourself, time, love, affection, attention, um, could be money, okay, and you feel like you're getting less in return. Um, but the problem with it is that we're expecting something in return, whereas we kind of shouldn't. This is difficult. I think possibly a difficult concept. It's like, don't expect people to give you anything in return for the things that you love to do. Okay. All right. Next session. So loving yourself first. So how can we show love to ourselves? Always do your best. Already kind of said that one. So whatever you're doing, do your best at it. If you're trying to lose weight, do your best. If you're trying to get fit, do your best. If you're trying to write an email, write the best email. If you're trying to get promotion, do the best thing you can do at work to do that. If you're trying to make more money, do the do the best thing. Okay, do the best thing. Okay, and keep promises to yourself. So if you said you're going to go to the gym 3 times a week, make sure you're going to the gym 3 times a week. If you said you were going to meditate twice a day or once a day, make sure you're doing that. Okay, and you will probably fail to begin with. Okay, but over time, if you keep reminding yourself that that's what you're going to do, and that's how to show love to yourself, is keeping your own promises to yourself primarily, um, you will start to get there. You will start to go, okay, actually, I am keeping my promises to myself. I trust myself. I am good. I can do these things, and it will lift you up and decrease stress again. Finally, this is a tricky one. I found this a tricky one to read and to get around, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to include this bit, okay, but I kind of had to, because if I was going to summarize the book, I kind of had to put it in because it's in there. It is death. Um, it's going to happen to all of us. Okay? It is going to happen at some point. Okay? We are all dying just a little bit all of the time. And just to kind of put that in perspective, I have trillions of cells in my body at any one time. 100, at least tens of trillions. Okay, so the estimates roughly between 30 trillion and 100 trillion. Obviously, that's a big band. That's it's more than double from the lower end to the upper end. And millions of those cells are dying every second, and then millions of those cells are being kind of reformed and regenerated every second as well. Otherwise, if that wasn't happening at roughly the same speed, I would die pretty quickly. Okay, and death is a necessary part of life. Okay? It wouldn't be. So I watched a show. I don't know if anyone's watched it. A show called The Good Place. It's 4 seasons. It's funny. Um, I think it's funny. It is a comedy. And so basically, these people have died, and they've been put into essentially like a town with 300 other people. Okay? But it turns out they're not. They get told they're in heaven, okay? But it turns out they're not, and they're actually in hell. Okay? But it's a different version of hell. So this guy has created a version of hell where it seems good, but he's actually still torturing them. As you go through the series, it's funny. But they then eventually they do get to the good place or heaven, as it were. But the problem with heaven is that nobody died, right? And they were just there forever and ever and ever. And they were all kind of depressed, even though they were in heaven, because they had nothing to do. There was nothing, no excitement. There was no end. And one of the ways they solved that was to put a door in to say, look, once you're done here, that's it. You can go. So having death is kind of vital to having life. Um, it wouldn't mean the same thing without an end, because you just get bored if you just kind of wouldn't really do anything. There would be no sense of even just minor urgency to get things done, to achieve anything, to do anything. So it's inescapable. Here's another thing: death lasts a lot longer than life. So someone who died a couple of 100 years ago, they've been dead longer than they were alive. Um, so it's kind of like, mate, I'm looking at this from the perspective, personally, from the perspective of make as much of an impact as you can now, and there's almost no point dwelling on negative emotions because your time here is kind of limited to 100, maybe 120 years, okay, or at the very upper end, okay, 100, 120 years at the upper end. And what's the point in being depressed? Because you're only here for a very, very short time. So make the best of it. Okay? Yeah, what's the point in being unhappy or upset or sad about things? And just enjoy the experience as much as you can. I think I'm going to leave it there because I didn't know. The next bit is the last bit. And it was essentially mathematical gobbledygook to prove that there is some sort of architect or designer to the universe, because none of this would be possible if it was purely left to chance. Okay, so it talks about rolling dice and blah blah blah. Okay, so it wasn't particularly, didn't particularly add much value, I don't think. So I'm going to leave that very last bit and just give you the essence of that. The chances are there is some sort of energy, power, God, call it what you will, because the chances of a human existing after 4 billion years of Earth time, Earth being in existence, is infinitely small. And the chances of a universe existing in even of itself in a relatively stable state is even more infinite. It would take trillions and trillions and trillions of years if it was purely left to chance. And the fact that in our current concept of how the universe got formed and everything, it's been about 13 and a half, 14 billion years, whatever it is. The chances of everything happening that fast and us getting to where we are now is like practically zero, without some sort of influence from a designer or a god or a whatever you want to call it. So that was all that is on that kind of final bit. So it didn't put to rest the debate on God or whatever, but it was just an interesting kind of mathematical play on what are the chances of this actually happening if it was just left to random chance, and the answer is probably not. Okay, yes, there is still a chance that this was essentially pure fluke. It just kind of happened. And evolution explains everything. But the chances of it being that is so incredibly small. It almost has to have been formed by something else, whatever we want to call it. So I hope that helps on happiness. So yeah, my main thing from this one today is pay attention to the thing that you are doing and do it your absolute best whenever you can. Okay, so that could be communicating with people, it could be writing emails, it could be phone calls, whatever it is. Okay, do your absolute best at the thing you are doing now and put all your energy and attention onto it. And that will decrease your overall stress levels and kind of make us a bit more balanced, a bit less grumpy. Right? It's something, I've been with the kids and an email has come through. It's like, oh, that's a client. Hang on a minute, I'll just do that. And all of a sudden, the volume goes up. The kids start kicking off and start arguing. And I'm there I'm getting frustrated because I'm trying to write an email or a message. And the things go wrong because I've tried to do two things at once. And I've separated from a kind of a calm, happy situation and kind of broken that calmness by being interrupted by my phone to do a second thing at the same time. And it just doesn't really compute. It doesn't really work. And I've noticed again when I'm working, if I've got windows open all over my computer, I'll get a notification on one, I'll get a thing on another, I'll get a little number coming up, and like ding, ding, ding. I'm distracted and I'm not actually getting the things done that I wanted to get done, or I am, but a lot slower than I could be. So please try and focus on the yeah, all like always juggling. Yeah, and we are always juggling, but it's about giving focused time to specific tasks. Okay? So it might not be listening to podcasts while you're out on your walk, because maybe we should be focused on the walking rather than the podcast, okay? And enjoying the views and enjoying the exercise. Just an example I know from you. I know that's what you often do, and it's something I would actually do. But maybe thinking about this, I wouldn't. Okay? When I run, I on purpose I leave my phone at home. Okay? My headphones don't work anyway, but I don't take my phone out when I'm out for a run because I'm concentrating on enjoying the run rather than. And same with going to the gym. I put my phone in the locker so that I'm not distracted, so that I focus on lifting weights and doing the things that I want to do in the gym. And so if you're at work, you don't really want your phone nearby. But you want it in a drawer, you want it on silent so that you can focus on the thing. Problem with offices though is that people are going to come round and have a chat, or the phone will go, or you'll get an email that you will have to deal with because it's from your boss and it's important. So you do have to. It's tricky, okay, but whenever you can, focus on one thing at a time and put your full attention on it and do your absolute best on it, and be happy with the job that you've. Be happy with the effort that you put in. Okay, cool. I think that's happiness. That's wrapped up. Okay, ultimate truths. Ultimate truths. I'll just run through them again. Okay, be here now. Be present. Okay, be as present as you can. And there are 4 ways of doing that. You can be present on the outside world, your inner world, your thoughts and emotions, and your connection with the kind of the universe. Okay, come over here. Yeah. Change is inevitable. You never know which is the right decision. Okay? You've just got to make a decision and roll with whatever happens. Okay? Give love, give your time, give your effort, give your money within reason. Okay, obviously only if you can afford the money to give the money, but you can give other things without expectation of anything in return. Okay? That'll be a tricky one because sometimes it's okay, so knowledge and whatever. Okay, and love yourself first. And as I've said, okay, always do your best and keep your promises to yourself. We're all going to die, so make the most of your time that is not dead. Okay, make the best of your time that's here. And chances are there is some form of designer. Mathematically speaking, it's kind of dull, but there is most likely something out there, in there, wherever, everywhere, kind of that at least at some point pulled some strings that made kind of these things happen. Okay, whether they're there all the time or not, who knows. Cool. So I hope the last 4 or 5 episodes on happiness and the book Soul for Happy have been useful to you. I've certainly found them useful in my own life. I will certainly be taking on lessons from that, and I hope you take on at least a couple from that. Not everything, because everything would be great. Everything would be hard. Okay, it's one step at a time. So if it's just one for now, absolutely fine. I will going to summarize these, get them into a Word document so you've got all the tips and all the kind of the things in there over the next week or 2, and I'll get that in the group as I can. We're going to move now on to treatment time. So thank you very much for listening to this section, and we will stop recording here.